Schoolboy error, an old English phrase. It means a simple or fundamental mistake. For example, releasing a chronograph where the chronograph function doesn't actually work, or releasing a new GMT watch where the crown stems are bent on all the production models. Let's talk about Timex. Let's start with a little bit of history on Timex. So in 1854, it was the Waterbury Clock Company, and this was the foundations for the business. In 1944, they became Timex, as we know them today. They really had the golden era, I think, in terms of production and sales and market share in the 1960s and the 1970s, where they mass-produced cheap automatic watches for the working class. And they had the popular slogan, "Takes a licking, keeps on ticking." So Timex have 168 years of experience in making timepieces. So my frustration with this brand is the issues with the QC that just seem totally amateur. The two instances I mentioned in the introduction relate specifically to the Pan Am chronograph, and this was the one where, I don't know if it was every single watch affected, but a large portion at least of the chronographs didn't work at all. There was no function, the buttons did nothing, they were dummies, but the watch was sold as a chronograph. How do you have 168 years of experience and you release a chronograph where the pushers do not function? The second, on the brand new Quartz GMT that they've just released, both Brave Beaters and Random Rob have handled them on YouTube, and they've both got the same bent crowns, and I think it's the stem. But again, how is this happening in production units for such an established brand? I don't know if the factory that Timex uses are just not very good. If so, Timex should consider changing them, or speak to them and make sure they're doing QC checks. Are they prototyping properly? Are they checking any of the production units before they get shipped out to customers? These are schoolboy errors. Anyway, when they don't mess up the QC, they can absolutely hit the nail on the head and they can make a great watch. So let me show you my Waterbury chronograph. So this will be a little bit of a quicker review today. Main reason is that I want to focus on a discussion about Timex as a whole rather than just this one specific watch. But I thought it's worth to show because in the interest of being balanced with Timex, they can make a great watch, and this is one of them. So of course, the colours in the dial are the reason that you're, I think, drawn to this watch, and it's what drew me in. In terms of specifications, it's a 41mm case. I measure the lug to lug at 46.8, but those lugs are angled inwards at the bottom. It'll actually be a smaller measurement at the bottom of the lugs. It's an unspecified quartz movement. It acts like one of the Seiko Mecha quartz movements to me, but everything seems to line up nicely. Even the seconds hand in the subdial on my watch is hitting the markers bang on, which is always nice to see. So no complaints at all with the movement today. The case height is 13mm, that's without the glass, and it's a 20mm lug width there, so plenty of flexibility with straps. Water resistance is 100 meters, and it's only mineral glass on this one, not sapphire, I'm afraid. The only critique I can throw at the dial is that the date window just seems like an afterthought, just stuck in there. It doesn't really work coherently with the rest of the design, and whilst it's not insulting, once you see it, you can't unsee it. So I would think it would be a cleaner design if the date wasn't included in this watch. In terms of case finishing, it's a really high quality brush on both sides of the case. And then the bezel, which holds the tachymeter scale, that's polished, which is nice. It gives something a little bit different. And then between the top and the side brushed areas on the case, there's some nice polished chamfers as well, just to break it up and add a little bit more design flair. The case as well, again, really nice on this one. Really well done to Timex. It's a screw down crown, so you do have 100 meters of water resistance. Obviously you've got the pushers, which are not screw down, but clearly there's some gaskets in there to achieve that water resistance. So this makes a good daily watch. And the chronograph pushers have a sort of hatched pattern engraved into them, and then the crown has again the Waterbury logo, and yeah, it all looks very nice. Again, there's attention to detail here. In terms of operation, it's a screw down crown, so simply unscrew it, and then it's a quartz movement, so there's no winding here. You've simply got just the first click for the quick set date and the second click to set the time. And in terms of the pushers, start stop on the chronograph is the top pusher, and you can start it and stop it with ease. It's not the most tactile, but it's also not the mushiest either. It's better than the Casio, which I reviewed last time out, and the lower pusher will just reset, bring you back to 0 with a nice smooth sweep. Looking a little bit closer at the dial, so it's got a very nice sunburst silvery metallic finish to it. Timex, the Waterbury and water resistant 100 meters at the top. At the bottom left there, underneath the dark blue subdial, you've got the Waterbury logo as a nod to the past. In terms of the subdials, you've got the sort of aqua coloured far right 24-hour subdial. I've never really seen any value in this unless you live inside a cave and you don't know if it's AM or PM. But anyway, it's there. You have the 60-minute timer in the red subdial at the bottom, and then the running seconds on the dark blue subdial on the left. And of course, you've got your hour and minute hand, relatively simple, loomed with these sort of slices of loom, just sort of split up into segments. And then you've got your seconds chronograph counter sat at the 12 o'clock, and the counterbalance on that is the Waterbury logo, so that's quite cool. I like that attention to detail. The indices on this are really interesting. You've got polished metallic edges, then you've got a strip of loom, and then a dash of colour matching that sort of teal on the right hand side subdial. So it's really nicely put together, and I think a lot of thought has gone into the design on this, and it really is a beautiful dial for such a low cost watch. The case back is nice enough in terms of the design. It's full polish, so it's going to bring out the scratches. It's got a bit of a spec sheet, and it says designed and engineered by Timex, and that's printed across a globe. There's two main drawbacks that I can pick up with this, aside from the aforementioned date window. The first one is the bracelet. So I removed the bracelet from this watch because it's a bit of an armhair pincher. It's not horrendous, but it's enough to irritate me, and that's why I've put it on this pilot style leather strap. The other downside is the loom, shown here up against the Loom Champion, the Proxima, which I use as a reference. It's weak, and it's useful for an hour or so, but it's not going to see you through the night. So whilst it's nice to have some loom, I think they could do a little bit of a better job here. I don't mind so much the mineral crystal at this price point, especially as you'll always get discount codes with Timex. It's 260 Canadian dollars, but you'll normally get 20 to 25% off with that. So that's all I'll say on this Waterbury chronograph. I think it's an awesome looking watch, and that's what sells it, and I don't have any QC issues. And when that's the case, Timex really shine for their fun, their playful designs, and their history, which they can call on, especially with the retro reissues like the Q range. This has been a great watch for me, but not every Timex is, as we've discussed. So let's come to a conclusion on Timex, the brand.
Yes or no, this is your last chance, no beating around the bush.
To conclude, Timex actually has quite a lot of nice designs. The Giorgio Galli range, the Q range, the Waterbury range, plus the digital watches that they make as well. They've got some really good offerings, and I've had the Q GMT that was launched in the Pepsi colorway. I had that for a little while, and that was a really nice watch. It's so just unbelievably frustrating that a company with this much experience keeps making such basic errors, and I think it definitely puts me off buying other watches, and I think it might be putting other watch enthusiasts off as well. I would like to have more faith in Timex, but at the moment I'm just struggling because these issues are recent history. These are not things from years and years ago. Anyway, I'd love to know what you think about Timex, about the brand. Do you still have faith in Timex's production and quality control? What do you think about the Waterbury chronograph? Let me know anything in the comments, any feedback. I always try and reply to as many comments as I can. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.